Thank you very much for coming to tonight's Lake Board meeting for Forest Lake, Lower Long Lake, and Upper Long Lake. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America,
And
to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you want to do it right away, or do you want to wait?
let's right now.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move item 10, consider approval of changes to the operations protocol of the Weir, up to number 6, so that we have
To the review.
this.
Oh,
Consider approval authorizing.
Six
to
no, no.
1,
right?
Yeah, actually, after 6. So we have the new number 7.
Okay.
We'll deal with all of these 3 issues, bang, 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 and move on to another topic.
That will give some of the employees that have already been here for 10 hours, and or actually 12 at this point, a chance to get home a little earlier. So we have a motion by Clerk, we have a motion by Clerk Brooke. Do we have support? Support by Commissioner Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. All right, so next we'll go on to reviewing of the posted meeting notices. Clerk Brooke?
Okay, this is a business meeting for each of the lakes, Forest Lake, Lower Long Lake, and Upper Long Lake, and the appropriate notices were posted timely, and so the meeting is in order.
And next we have public comment. So if anybody would like to come on up and share your thoughts, just give us your name. Your time. Since there's only one person.
Good evening. My name is Mike Soman. I'm a resident of the Indianwood subdivision. I live on Indianwood Court and also on Forest Lake. And I really have had very little to do with this body ever. I've known Steve for a long time, but other than that, that's been pretty much my connection. I have been a member of the Highland Lower Long and Forest Lake Board period for quite a bit of time. We've not really dealt with the Weir and the whole issue of the lakes. The reason I came tonight really was because I heard about the meeting in February, so I read about it a little bit, read the minutes, and I watched the video. It seems to me that what we're missing here really is kind of the central point. And that is, we have a Weir that doesn't work. I don't know the history of why that is. I know it's been around for a while. I know I paid for part of it. But a Weir, it seems to me, is something that has the task of keeping the water level in one body of water at a reasonable level, and also at the same time keeping the flow into the next body of water reasonable so that there isn't an overflow and not allowing any damage to occur. That's the whole point. We have had 10 years probably, 10 periods, excuse me, when the water has overflowed the banks of the lake and washed over the road. The big concern at the meeting, I think, has been the danger to the road washing out. I saw Mr. Coonihan's comments, and he said that could be a $1 billion problem. I don't know if it's quite that high, but it certainly could be very expensive should that happen. And yet we had 2 months, maybe more, of water going over Steve's entrance to his house over Club Drive, and nobody did anything about it. And it seems to me, going back, we have a problem. Either we have a Weir that is inadequate for the job, or we are managing it poorly. I don't know which. I didn't see that being addressed, and I think that's a very key problem that needs to be addressed by this group. Thought about very carefully. Do we need to replace the Weir? Do we need to change the protocol, which I know is being discussed? What do we need to do? But it seems to me if we don't discuss that issue, we're missing really the key point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Soman.
Close public comment. Next, we have consider approval of Weir Management Study Session minutes from May 2nd. We've all had a chance to look them over. Unless there's any changes, I would look for a motion.
I'll move.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mike Vlasic, second by Ron Kuzno. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes. Next, we have review of the 2023 Lake Board budgets and fiscal years for 2022-2023 fund balance reports.
Okay, those items are in the packet behind number 5. And for each of the lakes that were here is the fund balance and budgets as they've been adopted by the boards. And it's informational piece in here, and there's nothing that we're being asked to do.
Do you want to ask if there's any questions on each one?
Sure.
Is there any questions on Forest Lake? Any
Questions?
questions from,
Like that we don't have any money? I don't think it's a question, it's kind of a statement.
Just looking for statements, okay? Are there any questions before we go on from Lower Long?
Nope.
Okay. Are there any questions before we go on to Upper Long?
I have no questions on it.
Great. And we will go ahead and put those in there. Next, we will go on to considering the approval of authorizing maintenance to the Weir's authorizing maintenance to the Weir's inlet pipe and amend the 2023 budgets as necessary. Tonight, we have Director Noah Mahalski is here from DPW. We also have Superintendent Paul Horan in there as well to answer any questions.
I'll just give a brief intro. At the last meeting, the May meeting, I was directed to get quotes for the inspection and possible cleaning of the inlet pipe due to a sinkhole that I witnessed at the inlet pipe a couple years ago. So I have gone. Those 2 quotes were attached within the packet. Again, one is for televising and the other one is for if needed cleaning while they're in there. What I would seek is authorization for up to doing both of them, because what they're gonna do is just make a decision on site. If they need to clean it, they'll already have the equipment there. So, building in the leeway to clean it if necessary would be the optimal thing, in my opinion.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't want to scope it. You told us last time it's ancient, that it's gonna give out sooner or later. So how much does it cost to reline it?
I don't know that.
Okay, I'd like to know that, because I think preventatively, that's the better thing to do.
I wouldn't make any assumptions on when it's gonna fail or anything like that.
Well, but it's ancient.
I just wouldn't make assumptions like that. So that's from my end. In my end, it would be prudent to have someone look at the pipe. They'll want to do that before they line the pipe anyway, to understand if they can even line it, if it meets the parameters of being lined. So you're going to have this cost anyway incorporated with that lining project. So I think this is just a methodical step-by-step of knowing what you're getting into. I don't know. It could be $100,000, and does the group have that amount, right? Or do they need backup from a reputable firm saying these are the problems and this is the solution? I think that's the better sell to the management group. So I think in my opinion, you want to know what you're getting into prior to kind of just giving someone carte blanche.
Okay, so then when you ask them to scope this thing and maybe clean it, we would like to also know longevity of the
They
infrastructure.
wouldn't put a year on that. They'll tell me general condition of the pipe.
Okay,
and
general
recommend
condition.
improvements.
Okay. And they would make a recommendation to line or replace. We would like a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I need authorization to even get to that point. That's why I'm here today.
Okay.
In my mind.
Yeah, this one's.
This
for
is the
step-
same way we handle $1 million lining projects for the township. You need to know what you're getting into. They may not even be able to handle it if they haven't got into the pipe. They can't just show up and do
Right.
a liner.
Okay.
And also,
Okay.
to Noah's point, it might be even past lining, so this way we'll know exactly what the
Right.
recommendation.
Yeah,
Right.
and then you'd be talking about digging up the yard,
Right.
so. So that's a bit, this will entail what discussions.
This is why we
have.
put you off screen. Did you see his face when you said that?
Well, I don't know what they're gonna recommend, I can't make assumptions.
Okay.
Oh,
I've been around enough with underground to know I can't assume on it.
right.
Okay, and is this the only company that does this?
No, they're the only one who, we approached two companies, the leaders in the industry, the other one didn't want to touch it, and they were able to give us a quote, and it's of a level that's so low that I believe it's very competitive. So the other company didn't have time for this job,
Okay,
so.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yep, this is coincidentally, we'll probably be going to the board with a recommendation for this company to handle our sewer maintenance for sanitary sewer within the township, so that eases management of this too.
Okay,
Ron?
I have a comment on Mike's comments.
Well, this is about this right now,
I
about
know,
the inlet pipe.
yes,
Okay. I want to make sure you're talking about this.
inland pipe.
Yeah, okay.
I've been working with that Weir for close to 40 years, and it's the same pipe. And when we get a very heavy rain, that inlet pipe does not flow enough water to lower the lake quickly. I suspect that we would be better off having a larger inlet pipe than the current pipe that we have now. Because you were talking about 10 years ago, I can't remember, I've got my computer, I could look it up. But we had a hurricane situation that came, we got over 4 inches of rain in like 36 hours. The way the Weir works and the lake levels work, and when you get that much rain, you get double the amount of water in the lake. So 4.5 inches of rain gives you 9 inches of water. The Weir was set appropriately at that time, but 9 inches of water is way too much for handling, the current situation. So of course it went over Club Drive and flooded a lot of people. Now, if that diameter was larger, we'd be able to lower the lake quicker. Now, it turns out, I measured the water level 2 days ago, 34 1/8. After that, almost 2 inches of rain. Today I measured it, it's 34 1/8. Why didn't it go down? The reason it didn't go down is because we got close to 2 inches of rain the other day. And that causes Inland Lake, Turtle Lake, and Heron, what's the one at the corner of Square Lake and Higgins Lake, I think. Anyway, their water levels go up. And so now we're getting water from those lakes. And therefore, the Weir level doesn't go down because we're taking as much water in as the Forest Lake Country Club is using it, and so on and so forth. So if I would like a recommendation from an engineering company to see if a larger pipe would handle situations like what Mike brought up.
Do we want to add that to new business? Because that's different than what would this company be somebody who does that, or that's
That would be
another company?
HRC.
So that would be probably under new business, we could talk about that. Because right now, we're only talking about this company for this task.
Yeah.
But we could talk about other items later in the meeting.
Where is that 24-inch storm drain, the televised, where is that located?
Under the dock, that's the inlet pipe.
Under the dock?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, right on, going
under
into
the little dock,
Yep.
okay.
We can do like a motion to add new business later, okay. So when we get towards the end, we'll do a motion to add new business, and we'll talk about that then.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to approve the,
I have a
Are there
question.
any more questions?
Yes. When you, I just want to know process. I'm new to this, so question for you is when you all vet out companies to pick up these assignments, do y'all have to get a certain number of, do y'all, put out an RFP or something? What's going on? And then how many quotes do y'all accept back before y'all move forward?
Can I answer this?
And then my third question is, what was the final determination? I know you said one company couldn't pick up the job, but how did y'all get to the final decision of this company for you all to go through for this project?
Before you go to final, I want to let Angela know this is not a public lake. So the township has little to no involvement and is only barely assisting because it is illegal for private lakes to be benefited by public money. So if this were a township project, because again, this is not a township project, not a township lake, unless you want to add some boat launches, I would love it. But these are all private lakes, so.
Okay.
Because we are part of helping them with the Weir at a very bare minimum, like for example, if they want to do some of these things, they'll be hiring another company. We would be out of it.
Oh, got it.
Because they are
Okay.
already at the bare minimum or maximum of what we were able to do. If this were a township project, we go through a much higher vetting purpose. There's
Right,
things like,
okay.
but again, he's not allowed to put those kind of time, resources, and money into a private lake.
Thank
So
you.
out for help, these are people we normally would call, so it's real quick to make a quick call to the ones that we've vetted for our own, but we wouldn't go past that for a private.
Thank you.
Because a lot of places have public
I wouldn't
lakes.
know.
Right, and then we
Yeah, see,
would,
that's why I was asking,
Right.
because I work for a public, you know,
Exactly.
city. But I just wanted to see the difference, but truly I understand now by being
Yeah.
private,
so that's
Thank
why,
you.
like.
I didn't know that information.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that helps a lot, because I know it gets confusing too with two of us up here, and then the county's got two, and it gets confusing, but truly, these are private infrastructures that they decide how they want it to, this is them making decisions, we just help facilitate.
Got it. Okay. Thank
So
you.
that's why we want all their opinions.
Thank you.
Because it's their lakes.
Particularly, these
Yeah.
two entities that I reached out to were chosen because we have a good, long-standing relationship with them. I'm not gonna bring a company into a case like this that's gonna make more trouble for me.
Got it.
So, and, you know, very low cost to this at this point, so
Thank you.
compared to, you know, a major lining project or something.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
I missed the comment about who's gonna pay for this.
Well, this part, meaning like if you all wanted to actually go deeper or more than what we can give you, you're gonna start having to have somebody running your lakes. Because unless you're gonna give public access, public dollars cannot be used for private infrastructure. So for example, I saw some of the things we're gonna be talking about later, and if you do change the Weir, I'm just gonna put that right out there right now, we're gonna have to also talk about somebody else maintaining your lake going forward, because we can't use DPW employees to do the level of 2-inch management that's being requested. But we'll talk about that later. So,
Answer is the township's paying for this?
never is the township ever paying for anything on a
Well,
private
that's why
lake.
I'm here tonight, is
Yeah.
to get authorization.
This
from
is all your lakes and your money and your resources.
The three lakes.
The lake boards.
The lake board
Lake
is not
Board.
the township. The lake board is the riparians pay for everything that the lake board does. So I want to make
That
sure
was
that's
my
always
question.
out there.
Paying for it.
No public money will ever be used on private infrastructure, whether it's private roads or private lakes, private drains, none of it. We are not legally allowed to do that unless we want to make one public.
No.
I would love to have a public lake. So no, you will always be paying for everything that is on your lake, your weed harvesting, everything, because it is only you that gets to use it. The public doesn't get to use it, so you can't use public tax dollars. So that's why it's a little confusing, because you have entities here helping you get the stuff to the right areas and deal with Eagle, but realistically, even when a lake board gets sued, they're suing their own neighbors. They're not suing entities, they're suing neighbors. So it's always just remember that with private infrastructure, private people are paying for it. So anything you decide on is always coming from the riparians and your SADs.
So if we make a motion, we're gonna have to say who's gonna pay for it when we make the motion.
If you want it different than the three of you, yeah, I would assume that any motion would include an
The
equal.
agreement says it's
Right.
split evenly between the three lakes.
Right.
So my proposal would be that, to give me the leeway to not exceed 5,000, just in case they need to do the cleaning when we're in there.
Right.
And I don't believe there'll be anything, we talked about insurance, I think we can cover that either under our existing contract or their general liability for a $2,500 job.
Okay.
So I don't think there'll be any extra cost. We had that discussion with them today for that. So I think I can get the pipe inspected and have a report back to this group for the 5,000 and possibly the 2,500. So, but I don't want to have to come back to you if they in the field say,
I tried.
Yeah.
We need to do the cleaning.
And
'cause-
that was an assumption that with 3 lakes, you all equally benefit from a weir that works. So if you want to have discussions amongst
No.
yourselves,
No, I'd like to make a motion.
are there any more questions first? No?
So-
No.
The only question I have is with regard to budget. So as Riparian Steel, you mentioned a moment ago that the Forest Lake budget
That's
is quite
correct.
tight. It is tight. And if we may have sufficient funds in that budget to expend this $1,700, which would be the 1/3 share for each lake. But it's possible that money might not be there.
Correct.
You had some ideas, I think, about,
We may ask to borrow the money from the POA. I'll handle it. I'll have our lake board ask the POA for the money.
And if they say no, what would be our backup?
well, we have a.
Lower Long will loan us the money.
As long as we know that there's a.
We're all friendly
Okay.
here. It'll get taken care of.
Okay,
So we can enter Lower Long
it would just all be
and
included in the motion.
Forest Lake could enter into agreement that Lower Long for this next year would front the money.
Yes.
And Forest Lake
Would
would pay
have
it
to
back
be in
next
the
year.
motion.
That is a friendly group.
Yes.
Okay, so she has to add that to her motion?
Well, yeah, that's the funding mechanism of how you would be, it would be worked into the motion.
Okay,
Okay, so are you ready for a
So
motion?
for-
or-
Well, we should probably do a separate one, at least
Yeah,
for each
and
lake.
I was gonna say, this is a joint lake board meeting, but they
each
are
lake
separate
gets a
lake
separate
boards,
motion.
so they need to have a separate motion. And, I know I didn't bring it up in the posted meeting notice portion, but, there may have been a defect in the notice on Upper Long Lake. So what I would suggest is we proceed with the vote, for tonight, and properly post the Upper Long Lake Board for a future date to ratify any decision that's made. So we can proceed tonight, but it may be subject to a ratification at a later date.
Okay.
For Upper Long Lake only.
Yes. Because
Of
it's
their
2
acceptance of
townships,
the-
yes.
Okay. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
So that,
So,
so then would it be divided 4 ways between upper, lower, Forest, and Island Lake, or just the 3?
The agreement was in the 3 Lake Board: Forest, Upper and Lower Long.
But since they're tight, they don't have the fund balance of that would be needed necessarily.
I understand.
They're gonna go there for a loan, basically a loan.
and Island Lake's not included because they have their own weir that between Island Lake and Lower Long Lake, so that they manage their lake level on their own.
And they maintain it. All right.
So we could do a first motion for first with Forest Lake, and I could try to make that motion that Forest Lake approves the proposed contract for televising and if necessary, cleaning the inlet pipe and amends its budget appropriately for the $1,700. And I could go on, and would, if necessary, obtain a loan from the HOA for those funds or
or a grant
Or a
from the
grant.
POA.
From the
from the
PO.
POA, or obtain a loan from Lower Long Lake,
As a third option.
and authorizes the riparian and the chair to enter into an agreement to that
Yes.
effect.
And if it does end up to the third option, is there a date of when it would be paid back? Would it be in the next
Oh,
year's
Yes,
assessments?
in the
Next year,
next year, 2024,
correct.
summer of 2024.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have support? So a motion by Clerk Brooks, support by F. Steele. All in favor on the Forest Lake? Aye?
Aye.
Nope, just Forest Lake.
Yeah,
So
just
wait,
Forest
you're
Lake,
not
so-
Forest, so I need Marcia?
Yeah.
Or Forest Lake.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, who's the 5th?
Fifth.
Oh, JC's over there.
Yes.
Okay, so of us 5 for Forest Lake, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That one passes. So now we'll go on to Lower Long.
Want me to try to do that one too? It's the same thing that Lower Long Lake Board authorizes to enter in the contract for, as proposed, for the Weir inlet pipe televising and cleaning, and authorizes, if necessary, to loan Forest Lake its share of the $1,700 per lake, subject to an agreement signed by the riparian and the chair for payback in the summer of 2024.
So we have a motion by Clerk Brooke, second by Mike Vlasic. And then of everybody who's on Lower Long, we have Mike, myself, Clerk Brooke, Angie, Angela, and J.C. So of us 5, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That one does pass.
And
Next we have
lastly,
Upper
Upper Long Lake.
Upper Long will have a similar proposal.
But you won't need the extra funding though, so yours will be easier.
Well, you know, we will pay for our
Sure.
share.
Okay. So we have a motion by Ron Kuzno. We have support. Support by Clerk Brooke. And then we have Ron, Terry, myself, Marcia, and J.C. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. All right. So thank you all for the patience on that one. It's easier to bring everyone together until we get to that part, right? So now we're going to move up our considering approval of changes to operation protocol of the Weir. We're going to move that up, and we have Director Noah Mahalski here.
So this proposal, I had a chance to review it at the last meeting. There wasn't that time, but my feeling would be we can incorporate much of the suggestions that Ron made in his document in here. Really, it doesn't change much. We already make accommodations for opening or closing the valve depending on what the level of the lake is, even though it's not written into the plan. So there's kind of 2 instances when Ron wants the valve closed instead of opened, or never opened really, unless there's an emergency. Then there was the kind of date range issue that occurred where it's May 15th and then the other date was June 1st. So there was some ambiguity within the plan, a typo or whatever that was. But that it leaves a gray area from May 16th to June 1st. I basically propose to watch the weather and manage it between those 2 standards within that time, depending on how much rain we're getting and that type of stuff. I'm completely against kind of monitoring it for 2 inches over the set point. That's where I think we'd have to bring Ryan Moore to the table on that, because he's actually the guy who makes the adjustment on site. He's there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in a lot of cases, so that I think that needs more discussion. But I'm going to be flexible, like I've told you all at the May meeting and Ron in the past. So nothing appears to be outlandish here, but I think, I can't modify the protocol just by being here and I think there's some split attitudes on whether they'd like to see changes or not. So my intention is to remain flexible like I have been in managing the Weir, and be responsive to any calls or anything, or, this recent rash of wet weather that we've had, that type of thing. So we're gaining some back in the lakes right now, so.
So why don't we start with each lake kind of giving their impression of, are they looking for changes? Are they, where do each of you stand? Want to start?
Can I add something real quick? What I think I'm hearing Director Mahalski say is that the current protocol is flexible enough to accommodate some of the matters that Ron brought to our attention
Yeah, but
without changing the protocol itself.
there's quote-unquote typos in there. I mean, you mentioned them.
Well, yeah, there's a date range, where May 15th, and then there's no real guidance between there and June 1st. How I've treated that in the past was to be conservative based on the amount of rain that we've gotten. I would propose to continuing that. Again, if during the May 15th is still in the spring rain season, so if we have predicted heavy rains, I will treat it at the 32-inch level, whereas if we have long extended periods of predicted dry weather during that time, I'll close that up to 34, which is kind of, this year I closed the valve during that time because we were heading into the drought that we've now come out of, so.
So I know one lake is definitely interested in it because Ron proposed it. So of the other lakes, can you speak up and give your opinions?
I thought we discussed it last time, and that it was easy to add the couple of sentences into the document. And Mark, I think you said there was no problem.
Well, the sentences that are worrying me right now are, right now there's a there is an ask for micromanagement of water levels to a 2-inch level based on this, and extending it of summer, fall, and winter if the water level exceeds our value level by 2 inches. So taking away the ability for Noah as the professional or Ryan as professional to manage the water, it does appear that there's a micromanagement aspect that's going to
The
start.
2-inch,
where they can
we don't
come
need
and
to
say,
include the
change it,
2-inch, the
Yeah.
2-inch.
I mean, to keep
parameter.
the water level in multiple lakes that tight is going to be somebody where you'll be hiring somebody to manage it on almost a daily level.
It doesn't take
We
that
don't
much
have
time
that.
over a year.
Kind of access.
That circumstance only shows up maybe 4 or 5 times in a year. You know, it's not like you're micromanaging 2 inches, because,
We do get a lot of calls and requests from certain individuals to micromanage that water already with
Yeah.
our current protocols. If we loosen them even more, I'm going to have to say that we're going to have to step out, because we should not be doing this if we do that. And then also, you might need to talk to Ryan Moore, because again, Forest Lake Country Club would then have to probably have somebody that's part of this bigger than Ryan, in a sense of, so I don't think you guys realize how much time on this we were spent with the DPW. Consistently, emails, calls, back and forth, a lot. It is more than what you probably know is happening. And if that is expanded more, then I'm thinking that either you would need to find a vendor that would actually do this work. Does that make sense? Like,
I've
it's-
talked to everybody, my neighbors, no one is dissatisfied with the way it's being handled right now.
Okay,
So we're happy with the way it's being handled.
oh, okay.
We're happy with the
That's
way it's being
good to
handled.
hear.
But there's a very generic definition of how it gets handled to allow people leeway.
Right.
But my concern is, if Ryan were to leave, or if you were to leave, director, then it's a very generic protocol
And
for the next person to step into.
and this is probably why most municipalities don't get involved.
Right, we're
This
grateful
is
you
one of
got
the
involved.
Only municipalities you will see, I believe you did some checking,
Right.
and most have stepped away completely from lake boards.
Right.
And we're kind of at that cusp, where we're pretty good with the way it's working right now.
Right,
But if we
Right.
keep pushing and micromanaging public employees on your private infrastructure, we're gonna also have to step
No.
away. So I need to know how serious you are about this protocol, and I need to know where you guys stand, so we know kind of where we have to focus. But I'm glad to hear that somebody is happy, because we get a lot of emails and calls from another lake that is completely unhappy.
yeah, no,
So that's
we're
why
happy.
it's okay.
so you're not making any changes at all for all practical purposes. The way
So we
I,
shouldn't change anything, just leave it as is?
no,
Mhm.
there are things that are wrong.
Ugh.
There are things that on March 1st through April 15th, set the Weir at 28th and have the valve open. When the valve is open, the water just keeps running out. And if the valve is set at 28 and the water's at 28, but the valve's open, you're running water out. And that's what your current instructions say. Set it
So
to
he's
28.
doing things based on our current protocol.
I know.
And
so-
other lakes are happy with it, which I was happy to hear.
And we closed the valve.
And we closed the
Based
vet
on
because
weather.
he does things based on weather, based on science, and that's
if you
been
recall,
working for a lot.
valve was cut into the weir because you couldn't maintain the flow of water over, and it was found that the valve was necessary during those high water times to pass the water through,
Well, yeah,
such
but-
as the early spring time. That's why it recommends that the valve is open. Again, this year, when we had a budding drought coming for the year, we closed the valve. That's responsive management of the weir, right? So, but I don't completely discount the value of that valve, because that will be the thing that saves you
That's
in
right.
an emergency. So,
But that's why
and it may not be enough.
Ryan and I put this together. This is not just my suggestion. I typed up a draft. He and I have been the ones managing this thing for a long time. And we're saying that the modifications more represent how we manage it than having the instructions say, when you leave
So are
and I
you-
leave and Ryan leaves, it says that the valve is open when in fact, at that time of year, our water level was around 24 inches.
So Ron, this
So-
is confusing me because I thought Noah and Ryan were managing the Weir. Are you the one managing the Weir now?
No,
Okay, you just said that you and Ryan manage the Weir, so now
No.
I'm trying to figure out where all this is going.
I said, I talked to Ryan about this,
Okay,
and he says this is the new improved language. And Ryan and I have actually been somewhat working together, because I keep track of the rain and the water level on a Excel spreadsheet. He does not.
so is Ryan going to be taking over? So since we go by, again, Noah and Ryan, is Ryan going to be taking over and the township is stepping out? Like, what is going on right now?
Nothing is going to
Okay.
change.
Township can't step out because the township has a management, says they're
We
managing the
agreed
Weir.
to one contract. If you change that contract, we are technically out, and you have to get us and everybody to agree to the new contract. I need you to understand that we are okay with the way it's running right now, and I can continue to give you the resources as it runs right now.
I mean, this,
I have one lake that does not like the way it's run and does call and email and ask for a lot of things. I have one lake that now I heard is happy with the way it's done. What about the third lake?
yeah, this suggestion is only part, it's not replacing the top of the page where it says the township runs the Weir. It
No,
doesn't
but you're,
change the
you're
top.
putting 2-inch you're putting some requirements on my people that is going past what we're doing right now. If you're changing the contract we all agreed to, we're talking about a brand-new contract, and I'm saying I'm not comfortable with that right now. But then I was thinking all 3 lakes were unhappy.
No.
But it sounds like one's happy, one's unhappy, and now I'm trying to figure out what the third lake is thinking.
My lake is happy.
Well,
And
good.
then why are you asking for changes?
Okay,
If you're happy with how it's being.
if you leave and Ryan leaves and I leave, and
So we would discuss
And your,
it at that
and your water level in early spring from March 1st to April 15th is 24, but we're setting the Weir to 28 and opening the valve. That's running water out of the lake.
Okay.
And I say, this is not a smart thing to put in your instructions. This is definitely a bad thing to have your instructions say that.
Are we taking that out?
I was gonna ask Noah, is there something about the existing protocols that you feel needs to be amended to reflect what you've actually been doing for the last several years, which apparently everybody's happy with?
No, I believe I have the leeway to manage that valve as.
But what I'm saying is, like the open valve comment, is that something that needs to be changed in the protocols?
Not in my opinion, because I have flexibility in the management of it.
But the point is,
No,
this is,
you're managing, it, but I said if you leave,
Ron,
Ron,
please let him.
I had the floor, I think.
okay,
What I'm suggesting is, to reflect Ron's comment, that these protocols are gonna be in place for future people to follow. So I wanna make sure that it's accurately describing what needs to be done, in your opinion, having done it successfully for a number of years.
Gotcha.
So maybe,
Like, have you changed some of this protocol in your own head that you agree needs to
Only this
change?
spring with the valve closed.
So
because
that
we were
would
in a low
change.
water situation, right, so, but I think even that is covered on, like, some of the notes on the current agreement, right, where it sets maximum and minimum levels. And then, I guess I could write up an internal policy for how DPW manages the Weir based on the protocol, which would display that. But the concern here is that I go from 5 basically dates on my calendar when we move a Weir to monitoring the Weir 24/7, 365 for a 2-inch variance.
Which means you're not hiring it up.
No.
So I'd
No,
like
that's
the
what
leeway to
this
continue to
says.
manage it in the way I have. Personnel, staff, residents, all that will change, right? But we will codify how we're doing this as a DPW policy.
So that's my fear is these requests may seem small to you, but they have taken a 5-day to an every day, and we are stepping out on that. That's what I'm saying. We will agree to continue this, but if you change that, I'm personally no longer signing off on that because my DPW is not supposed to be checking every day on private lakes. So some of this may not seem like a big deal, but 2-inch measurements, that's a big deal. So now I'm hearing again, I need the third lake to kind of weigh in.
So as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a lot of complaints about the water level in Lower Lawn. I'm not saying people don't call you and say the water's too high, the water's too low, because I get those calls too, but
Right.
none of them are really material, and they're not people that, I mean, I wouldn't act on them.
Okay.
I personally feel like having the township involved is the best of all worlds, and so I wouldn't change, if changing the contract results in the township not wanting to be involved, that's bad, as far as I'm concerned, from Lower Lawn's point of view.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think we should
Right.
try to keep the township involved as best we can, because that's worked out really well for people over a long period of time.
Right. And just so you guys know, this is something that's been before myself. I'm the bearer of bad news because frankly, nobody else wanted to say it. But this is a conversation that has been happening for many, many years of, this
When I
is
began
more
my
than we were
career
supposed to
in the
be.
Township, I
Yeah.
was clearly told, never touch the Forest Lake Weir, and now we find ourselves managing the Weir.
Right, like, so we weren't supposed to be involved in private
Liability
structure,
issue.
then they got a little bit involved, now it's a talk about getting way involved. So that's why I need you to know that this is as far as we can go. If you make changes to it, you might need to look for somebody else
Look for somebody else.
to
What?
manage your weir. Because you cannot use public service past these 5 days.
I mean, for the 40 years I've been involved, I haven't been involved in the last couple of years.
This, again, goes way
township-
before me. I'm looking at
The
notes
township
from
was not
many years.
involved for those 38 years. The township decided on their own to manage the
Not
Weir.
on our own, definitely not on our own, because I've looked through all the notes, because again, I inherited this. It appears that the way it was managed was not well liked by other groups, and there was possibly access to people's land that was an issue, and people trusted the township to only access it on 5 days. They would not have to worry about people coming on and doing things, and they also knew it would be done to the level of engineering and DPW. So there was a trust factor that approached previous administrations to do this. I have inherited it, I looked at it, saw the concerns they had, that it might go higher, it might go longer, and now I'm seeing it coming, and all their concerns and worries are now coming to fruition, which is why I'm saying, others have thought it, they just didn't sit up here and say it. And I always tell people, you may not like my answers, they will always be honest, and the honest answer is, you have your maximum days of allotment right now. We will not be managing a weir on a daily basis where people can call in and say, now we need it lower, now we need it higher, now we need it lower. That's why you hire a management company like they do in other areas. So I was worried because I thought all 3 lakes were upset
No,
with the management,
no, no.
but now I'm hearing one isn't,
Danny.
2 isn't.
We just need to make sure that there's a more detailed blueprint as to the actual management for process.
Okay.
In case somebody else has to do it.
So were you willing to, just like we
Not
had to
change
do-
the contract.
Right.
Right.
And we used to do that when I first came, again, there was a lot of stuff that was just, it was done a certain way and we put it in writing. There wasn't a budget policy, now we have one. There wasn't a purchasing policy, now we have one. We could do an internal policy to what you said of this is how the township is handling it. In which case, we don't change the contract, we lay it out, so if you're not here and it's a day Paul needs to help or someone else, it's there, we
Yeah,
could do
because honestly,
that.
even like that, delegating, I tell my foreman, you are not to get involved with the Weir because there's too much liability.
Right,
Because again, people come after me for levels of the lake,
right.
and that, largely that's out of my control when it comes to droughts and, but I've been threatened about it
Yes,
before.
I've seen some of those
Yes.
emails. There is a darkness out there that comes at Noah a lot, and I need to rein that in.
Director, could you also ask Ryan to put a document together
Well, I
for us?
mean-
Or can that be included in your policy?
Yeah, I mean, mine will say that I call Ryan to affect the adjustment on the Weir. Ryan does
Okay.
not make any
Okay,
unilateral decisions.
okay,
Right.
We are
Right.
lockstep.
great. Perfect.
And it works.
Yes, we're happy with what's happening.
Okay.
As far as the Weir, flooding and road conditions and other things, those are different subject matters. But as far as this contract and the management, we're happy. We would just like to be able to see it if we need to.
Would you be able to to prepare that for them?
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Do you want a pen?
I want to make,
No, I'll get on it, I just don't.
I didn't even write it right now. You look like you were looking for a pen.
Do I have to come back? Can I wait until we line the pipe?
Yep.
You know, if I can just give you the protocol and you guys can look at it, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I don't
Okay, great.
have to come to another meeting.
All right,
Great.
Thank you.
But it will be a matter of fact display of what we do on the site.
Okay, and you'll work with Ryan on it?
Yeah,
Review.
I'll have him review it,
Okay.
yeah, because really,
And to make it fair so that not one or two, or it's just you and Ryan, work on how you guys handle it.
okay.
Okay.
Right.
I want to make it perfectly clear
Oh my God.
that I think that Ryan and the township have been managing the Weir perfectly.
Can we get that recorded twice? I literally took this video clip out an email.
They've been following the procedure well. There was one period of time they made a 2-inch mistake, and it caused the water level to be very low.
Was that when we got 16 inches of rain in one summer instead of 3?
No, this is when
I thought it was 2021.
we didn't get any rain,
Okay.
and they had the Weir open.
Yeah, we do get often emails of, we
But-
need you to raise the water, not from you, from others, saying you need to raise the water because we're in a drought, and because he follows the weather, he says we can't because there's rain coming, and then the week later, there's too much water in there, you gotta get it out.
Even last
Can we
weekend,
call for the vote?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so, Commissioner Gershenson has called for the vote, so, let me get my thing back here. Do we have a motion set? Has anyone made a motion? Would you like to make a motion?
Motion
Okay.
to continue the contract and to see the policy, the more specific policy, at a future date. Thank you.
Motion by Effie Steele. Do you have support? Support by Commissioner Powell. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, so we have, how many are here? Are you a voting member?
Well,
One, two.
if you take a look at that writing and put that in your future policy, then
So
I'll
we're
say
not
yes.
going to. So we have one, we're gonna have Ryan and Noah work on their policy. We have a motion, we had a vote, and one dissent. So we're gonna move on to the next one. But Ryan and you will absolutely work together to get the policy written for everybody.
we'll get the pipe inspected in the meantime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They will decide on the writing that is going to be included.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
good
for
night.
coming.
Okay, so next we have, consider, there we go. Consider approval, to obtain insurance for the Forest Lake Improvement Board and its members and amend the 2023 budget as necessary.
So there's 2 items in here for insurance for the Upper Long Lake and Lower Long Lake lake boards. And there's a little bit of background as to why these are in here. And each one's a little different based on budget situations. But as the lake boards have operated historically, they have never had insurance for the board itself or its members. Either directors and officers insurance or any kind of general liability insurance at all. Yes.
Okay. My neighbors are questioning that. My neighbors claim that, who was the director that lived on our street? Corazon?
Yeah. Fred.
Was he the supervisor?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Supervisor Corazon, I want to make sure I use the right title, assured the lake boards, this is history that I'm repeating now, that they were insured.
Do you have a policy to show that?
Of course, I do not, I'm brand new, and but I was told verbally that that supervisor assured everyone that they were insured before they all accepted their positions. And that history has continued for some 40 years.
So unfortunately, although I apologize, Mr. Corazon, if he was, I did not know him personally, but I have heard many things that he has supposedly offered over the years, none of which was ever written down, and none of which was usually codified. So unless there's a policy that the lake board, because remember, the lake board would have paid for it. So unless
No,
whoever
that's
is saying
never
this, if
happened.
they have well, whoever's on the lake board that would have been there talking to Corazon to get this, if they have whatever they did to get it, because again, it would have been the lake board paying for it, it would have been the riparians paying for it, they would have the contract. Otherwise, there is no contract to
Right.
show that there's
Right.
any.
The argument was that the township was providing coverage under whatever policy the township had.
Just to clarify, there may have been a prior belief that the lake board would be covered by the township policy. When it came time to actually defend a lawsuit, there was no coverage.
Okay,
So that's the reality.
okay, so,
And the problem is these lawsuits are obviously frivolous. They were
Right.
all frivolous, but
Right.
the problem is that it costs one $13,000, around $13,000, one around $10,000 to fight it.
Right.
Which they don't realize they're suing each other. These neighbors that sued were suing their neighbors. Because they assume these are entities and that the money's coming from a corporation. They don't really fully understand that the riparians are the ones who pay. So that's why we went through and Clerk Brooke worked with Jay Sawmiller, who is the same person that provides us suggestions for insurance on ours, and they worked together to get the bid.
Right, so upon two lake boards being sued and learning that in fact that the lake board did not have insurance, it's not covered by the township's insurance since they're two separate legal entities, we set about obtaining and seeking quotes to provide the insurance so that the board itself would be covered and the members, in particular the riparian, was the individual that most needed the insurance.
and being a riparian, I would like to feel comfortable that I am not going to be personally sued. So,
Right.
fine. We'll get insurance. In the meantime, I have sent this also to my insurance agent. I would like more than one quote.
So we have sought more than 3 quotes and through our insurance broker, Jay Sawmiller, and only one entity, 2 declined to quote, and 1 entity provided a quote, and that's the one we have. If you find a more compatible proposal, we certainly want to look at it.
Sure.
So in concept for Forest Lake, what we're looking for is the approval to obtain insurance.
Does that say
Forest
Lake?
I guess at this point, we should wait to see what you have, and then make a motion then. But, because I can't really make a motion now I can think of that would
Every lake needs it.
accommodate the idea that perhaps your agent will have another proposal that's more competitive. But at least now we have a meeting, a general understanding that we need insurance, we're gonna try to
Fine.
obtain insurance and.
Fine.
Okay. So we won't do a motion.
So the other 2 lakes already have this coverage?
No, but the-
Lower Long Lake does, Upper Long Lake is next on the item.
Okay, very good.
And
Lower
other
Long-
lakes
Next
have
on
already
the
gone
list
through this,
for-
so.
Okay,
'cause you
yeah,
don't
we'll
have
do
to
it.
either.
Lower Long Lake had a 6 o'clock meeting, so we did theirs
Uh-huh.
at 6
We're
o'clock.
first.
Well, good for you, big boy. The big lake.
Mark, you wanna just leave that to another day?
So-
Is that a motion to obtain insurance or to seek other quotes?
For Forest?
So you're talking about
I think
Upper Long
there's
Lake
just-
needs it.
No, right now,
I think
right now we're
that's
talking about
Forest.
Forest Lake.
Then next is
Just
Upper
Forest
Lawn.
Lake, we're talking
Yeah,
about.
because I'm reading page 56 in here.
We're not there
The
yet.
We're not
There
up
yet.
to you yet, we're talking about Forest Lake, right?
Okay.
Yeah, each one has to be an individual, because you're getting individual policies, so we're starting with Forest Lake.
Do we need a motion that says we agree to purchase insurance? Or can we just move on?
So we could do a motion to purchase insurance up to.
Up to what? So if you get a
Up
lower
to,
$3,000,
up to $1,800.
And that way,
Correct.
if yours is lower?
Right,
you go with
correct.
the-
And then that way we can just move on.
I think we need to say 3,000, because that's the D&O number, not the general liability number. So I'd
You wanna
recommend
explain what
3,000.
those 2 are?
Well, so this is a quote for just the directors and officers liability insurance.
Mhm.
I'm recommending that we get another policy also for general liability, things like, injuries, slip and fall, and that kind of a thing that could come up.
Would that be like the one
It's-
that happened at Forest Lake? Wasn't there one where
That was
somebody
the
was,
Workman's
injury.
comp.
got hurt, a
Right.
weed harvester got
That's
hurt?
why we have no budget.
Right.
It is.
Right, so there's 2 different types of insurance, one protects you, one protects
Right.
against the
So I'd-
liability of that.
And that's not included in here.
That's true. So I would, the estimate we have from our agent is that for a total of 3,000, we'll end up getting both,
Okay.
up to 3,000. So
Okay.
my motion would be to approve up to 3,000 or not to exceed 3,000.
Yeah.
Fine,
And if you get a cheaper one.
fine.
do
And
that.
if you could forward the general liability component to me, then I will
Absolutely.
forward that also.
We have a
Excellent.
motion by Clerk Brooke. We have support by Effie
Effie
Steele.
Steele.
So again, the 5 that are involved in Forest Lake, only those 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, that does pass. And we
So-
won't need one for lower.
No, we did them already. And if
Now
Upper
we
Long
have
Lake, we
Upper.
may have to meet again to ratify it. Why don't we just postpone this?
Could do that,
I mean,
yeah.
That's
Oh,
what I
that's
would
right,
do.
because we need
Yeah.
to properly
Right,
notice
I'd
for
make
that
a
one.
This is
motion to
individual
table
action, so, yeah.
Item 8 for Upper Long Lake Insurance to a subsequent meeting.
Support.
We have a motion by Clerk Brooke, support by Treasurer Weingarten.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Okay, so next we'll go on to discussing Phragmite management needs and plans.
So I've added this on here just because this Phragmites is a horrible invasive species that all 3 lakes are experiencing from certain degrees and different times. Other lakes as well, I mean,
Yes.
are dealing with this. And each of the lakes right now operate, basically on their own, even though they're a chain of lakes together, and it's really one problem. In my view, at least an argument could be made that's one problem. So I put this on here for just a general discussion item. It's no action or vote required, but in the past, we have different approaches that have been taken on this issue. A vendor has been retained by 2 different lakes at different times. Cardno has worked on Lower Long, and I believe also in the past Upper Long Lake. Cardno?
Cardinal that does one of the islands on our lake.
Yeah, and Cardno apparently was just purchased by
Stantec, which is even a bigger engineering company.
Oh.
So my problem is, so just to explain, so they started, we got a quote from Cardinal, I think it was a 3-year quote. We only paid 1 year at a time. They did last year. They treated it with herbicide, and then they came and cut it in the winter when they could get out there. But this year, there's the people that we've dealt with are gone. The people we've dealt, because it was bought by a huge company. So we need a new vendor, I think,
Yeah.
if we're going to proceed. And so any help with that, I mean, if you could just I'd be happy to do it as a group. Or it's a pain in the neck to find somebody to get them to see the lake, to get them out there to quote on it. It's not something, and the individual, we might have more muscle if we had the lakes together, because each individual lake for a giant company is a tiny little contract. And so it was really a big pain to get them to come be on Lower Long. And so I'm happy to keep trying and do it again on Lower Long Lake and try to find somebody, but I'm not sure that we wouldn't be better off if we found somebody and then just divided it up by area or something, whatever the cost was.
You just found somebody.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
my guy who does my lake went over to Lower Long and cleared out 4,000 Phragmites plants. And I said, and it's on Lock Ridge Court.
Lockridge Court, is that what,
There is no such.
There's Lockridge.
there's a Lockridge, what are,
Well, Lock Ridge Road.
okay, Lockridge.
Road, yes.
And at the very end of it, my guy cleaned out 4,000. And I said, well,
For one of the homeowners?
yeah. Well, I'm paying for it because he did it on my contract. But he was doing the one on my lake, and he saw 4,000 over there, so he just walked over there and did them, thinking that he was still on my lake. But he went over and did 4. So Lower Long is obviously not treating them this year.
Well, we haven't done anything this year so far.
Yeah.
Last year we did them, we haven't done anything this year because our contractor's
And I agree that we should have
unfound.
one contractor doing our 3 lakes, because I can't get, I mean, the project is too small to get quotes from people. But if 3 of us get together and then we just describe what we want to do, we're much better off.
And Ron's guide he talks about, by the way, is something that we're working towards eliminating. It's the son of a person who lives in the neighborhood. It's just a guy. And we need to move to a corporation, an entity that provides us professionally, has its own insurance, has its own employees. Because the Lake Board shouldn't be, retaining individuals to perform service like that. But, so, Tom and I can work on helping to find an entity that would look at all three together.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, though, whether,
With our
because
insurance.
there's
Do that?
the fragmites grow in lake areas, and they grow in private areas, too.
Yes.
How do you-
Mostly, the large amounts are in wetlands, but
Which are part of the lake proper.
your lake has 28 sites, and they're all along the lake. Well, my
All
lake,
the lakes have them, yeah.
my lake has maybe 35 sites, and they're all along the shoreline, and there's a couple in wetlands. And I've been working with,
So, but they're not going on if someone's got an outbreak on their private property, they're not sending them off, your lake isn't paying to remove it on their own private property,
My-
or are they?
I got a contract with these people. I had them sign, and I told them that I have a Phragmites person that will go on your property and take those Phragmites out of your rose bushes and your flower gardens and your gardens and your backyard. And they do them one plant at a time. And I'm doing it with,
Did you send those people a bill for that service?
Because remember, any contract that is
No.
through this lake board that the lake board's
We're-
paid for
we're-
has to go through us. It can't be, I know a guy.
we're doing Phragmites treatment on the lake. And he's going on personal property.
And we'll need to put an end to this idea. It needs
Because
to
this
be
affects
professionalized.
insurance, this affects
Yes.
a lot.
Well, then,
This is gonna have to
then the 28 sites
He's doing
on Lower Long
be
He's
personal,
got a
can't be
guy.
done because
sends
nobody can go on the property to do it.
not on behalf of
So
the
are
Lake
you,
Board.
so Ron, are you personally paying for this? Because the lake board's not. The lake board won't be paying
Practice.
any so if we haven't signed the contract, there's no real contract with the lake board, which is why we stopped this. I remember on all the lakes, we stopped this because there was a lot of things going like this, and then there were problems and people weren't insured. If something happens, he's not an insured person who should be anywhere near your lake. And that's why we stopped this 2 years ago. Nobody else was allowed to sign contracts except for the lake board chair or the secretary. This stopped. So what I'm trying to figure out is, one, why is he still doing it? And two, who's paying him? Because it's not the lake board that's going to be paying this person. Because there's no contract with the lake board.
Right, so what happened, historically, what has been going on for, I don't know how long, for
Oh, yeah,
forever.
on my
is
lake,
that
we've been
Ron
doing it
pays
for over
them,
20 years.
and Ron is reimbursed by the lake board. And I'm advising him that has to
So
stop.
that's stopping.
Right.
We're not, you now have insurance, and in that insurance is, nobody touches your lake without being properly insured.
Right.
Like, you cannot be insured if you're not gonna follow the rules. So,
So the 20 years that we were doing it with high school students and.
and now that people are
college
being
students,
sued, you need to stop it. Unless you don't want
Fell in
the
the lake and
insurance,
got
that is
hurt.
your choice.
One of them could fall in the lake and get hurt.
And now you're sued.
And there's previously wasn't even any insurance.
Wow.
So,
Well, this guy is unlikely to sue people.
Well,
with-
I think they thought that about the person that sued on Forest Lake too.
right.
We even got sued in the township for the thought that water could have touched their property.
Well,
Yeah.
He's out there doing Phragmites today, probably.
So if he wants to become an entity that if he gets insurance, if he becomes a real entity, we can hire him.
He said he could do that next spring.
So
Then
until
can't
we
do
have
that.
proof of insurance to our legal that's approved, he can't touch it. He has to stop.
So,
Or else your insurance goes away and you could get sued and
we're not gonna do it.
you won't be covered.
perfect.
It's
If
a
I
lot
could
of
get a
money.
letter from you
Yes.
that I can pass on to people that say, we will no longer do Phragmites on your private property because that
You have to do
we,
it the way the
township,
other
said
lakes. No, we the lake board. The lake board, because again, we're lake board members right now, and this is why this exists, to protect riparians as a whole against any of this kind of stuff, which equals lawsuits. And I would love to, I would love to still live in that world of people don't have frivolous lawsuits. I promise you, we are fighting them every day. Literally having to fight a lawsuit where somebody who didn't get any water on their property is suing the township because they might have gotten water on their property. It's the reality of today. So, because of that, you have to get insurance, and otherwise it will cost you thousands of dollars to fight if he slips, falls, just like the person who sued the other lake, who slipped and fell. I mean, this is just, it can't continue. We had lead paint. We don't use that anymore either. The way things were done is no longer the way legally it can be done. We can't have lead pipes, we can't have lead paint, but they used to do it. So to say this is the way we used to do it, legally, we can no longer do it unless you want to be an uninsured lake. And that would be,
No, I won't vote for
Ron
that.
Kuzno has chosen to be the only lake in Bloomfield Township to be uninsured so his guy can continue to do this. That's the letter that they'll get.
Well, why can't I have the lake board get an insurance policy?
You just agreed to getting it.
Well,
We're going
to
to meet to talk about getting an insurance policy,
At the next meeting.
but that means that you don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to sign contracts. You don't get
They
to
won't
hire
insure-
random people to touch that water.
They're insuring us because
I think at the moment, no individual lake board member on any of the 3 lake boards is authorized to enter into a contract
No.
on behalf of the lake board at all.
For any kind.
And, you know, if you want to talk to somebody and negotiate some kind of a deal, then bring it to the lake board for review and approval, and the lake board chair signs on behalf of the lake board, then we've got a contract. But you can't, you know, have a guy and make an agreement on behalf of the lake board that he's gonna do work, because if something happens, the first thing that's gonna happen is the lake board saying, we never authorized that. And you're gonna be looking at a situation where you did something unauthorized, and you're gonna be personally liable for anything.
Not the lake board.
Not the lake
It would be
board.
Ron Kuzno
It's
that
a
would be
very
sued.
brand-new thing to me, because we've been doing
That's-
Phragmites in
Going
our
on for
budget.
about 2.5
That's
years.
why we're bringing it up, to
Yeah,
put an end to it.
that we never, ever are going, no more contracts by anybody else, because legal review, I don't even get to sign anything until legal looks it over and makes changes. I don't get to have free reign either. Nobody should ever have free reign like that, because this is to protect your fellow neighbors too. I mean, this is serious. People are being sued. It's expensive.
Okay, can we?
I think
Wrap it up?
we've covered this topic.
Yeah.
But one
So
thing that
are
was
they gonna come
suggested was that
together to talk as
was
a
it-
group?
Tom and I can look at obtaining quotes that would cover, possibly even
So
Island
Mark
Lake.
suggested why not think about adding Island Lake
Right.
into the Phragmites, because there is a connection there.
And we can look at what services they could provide
Adds
for
another
whether it's
lake.
private property, lake property, and get a quote for everybody, and then talk about it at a future
Well,
meeting.
what about Turtle Lake? I mean,
Turtle Lake is not a lake board, it's their own
They
entity.
do all
well, they
their
don't
own
have a
stuff.
lake board.
They do not.
They have Phragmites in Turtle Lake.
Probably. I think
Sure they
everywhere
do.
has them. They're all over.
They're everywhere.
We have our own strain. My husband knows how much I hate Phragmites because he's sick of hearing the word. But it's Phragmites M, and is the Michigan strain. It is one of the most aggressive and the worst ones.
I will
And-
find out from some of the West Bloomfield lakes who they're using.
Great.
Oh,
I
that'd
was
be
just
great.
texting one of the lakes that they didn't text me back, but I will check, because if there happens to be another reputable company, perhaps that might be a good
Great,
option.
great.
Yeah.
Please let Tom and I know, and we'll pursue that, and any
Absolutely
others we
will.
can find.
Okay.
And if he wants to get insurance and become an official entity, he can bid. So it's not that he can never do it, but he needs to legally be doing what he's doing through an actual,
I mean, what
Sure.
happens if well,
without insurance, he can't come to your lake,
I understand.
and without a
So-
contract.
I won't send a bill in August, but he's been doing work in July. As a matter of fact, I just gave
There's no
you,
contract.
Trespassing.
He's trespassing is what the lawyer is saying. He is
Okay.
trespassing on a private lake because he has no contract to be doing what he's doing.
but he and I understood.
But that's
he-
not
That's
okay.
the way it's
You
always
just
been.
explained how people get sued. I knew a guy and we had an agreement.
Dan, I would interject, if you know a guy that wants to take care of Phragmites, and you go to each homeowner and say, hey, this guy's willing to get rid of your Phragmites, and that homeowner hires the guy, that's a different issue.
Yeah, because they take it on then.
That's fine,
Okay.
you know, but it can't be on behalf of the lake board, that's the only point. So, I don't know what the arrangement was, but if the individual homeowners want to hire them, have at it.
But we wouldn't be a part of that at all. Like, they would hire him, they would pay him, any problems, it's on theirs.
Well, maybe I can go to Cardinal and have them hire this guy, you know, just to do,
Maybe the new
Cardinal-
company that bought
Cardinal
Cardno.
was out.
Cardno just got bought, but yeah, they're probably
yeah,
looking for
somebody,
We'll contract Cardinal if they've
Yeah.
got a good proposal.
somebody give me that information.
I'll give you the
Mike
people I
has it.
have at Cardinal. I mean, if you can find them, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll take on,
Yes,
The
we'll help to
Phragmites going
coordinate the
From you-
surfacing of
you,
contract
okay.
options to deal with Phragmites on a lake-wide
I had a meeting
system-wide
with somebody.
basis, and come back
I
to
have a
different
new
lake boards.
person you could
okay.
call.
Now, we did agree that we could add new business. So is
Yeah.
there a motion still to add the new business of the size of the weir at this meeting?
Size of
The
the,
size of the inlet.
Size of the inlet pipe, sorry. You had mentioned something you wanted earlier. Are you still looking to add a motion to
Well-
add that as an agenda item to talk about tonight or at a future?
Yes, let's talk about it
Okay, so we
tonight.
have a motion to talk about the size of the inlet pipe. Do I have a second?
support.
Support by Clerk Brook. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That does pass.
So the motion is to investigate the
Have a
size.
No,
discussion
this is a
item.
motion to discuss about it.
Yeah.
To
Well,
discuss,
a motion to discuss it
yeah.
Right.
some other time.
No, we're
Right now.
discussing right now,
Oh,
so,
okay.
so tell
Okay.
us what you're thinking.
Well, Mike here mentioned that he said there were times when the water wasn't running off the lake fast enough. And we've had this weird diameter, you know, for 40 some odd years that I know of. That's probably originally from that original house. And if the pipe was bigger, it could handle more water. So I think that we should have somebody like Hubble, Roth, and Clark take a look at it and see, with the Weir the way it's designed, would a larger pipe make any sense? I'm not saying we should have a larger pipe. I should say that we should have an engineering study to say, how can we process high water level faster?
Now, there is a
Why
cost to
don't you
that,
weigh
again,
in?
just to remind you, any of these things are at the cost of the lakes.
Yeah.
So you're discussing about hiring, the lake boards would pay and hire non-employees, it would be an engineering firm to do an engineering study on the size of the pipe and make a recommendation. But again, that would be at a cost to the lakes.
Why don't you wait till you get the report
Yes.
Yeah, I would see, yeah,
and then you can,
see how much the existing pipe is occluded, maybe. It would be interesting to know, like if the existing pipe is 24 inches diameter, but it's only 18 inches clear,
Yes.
then we could decide that once they've cleared it, whether we need to then go to the next step is whether a bigger pipe, because they're just doing math, right? Whether a bigger pipe would help the weir.
Yeah,
And it would be a lot of, not only sort of the engineering costs, then if you decide to do it, obviously it's a construction project versus perhaps just clearing or even lining. Those probably are far less expensive options, but
it's on
Right.
private property too.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's better to first, as they're indicating, figure out how that first portion goes and what they determine, and then if they say it's old as can be, as you were indicating, and it's met its lifespan and we need a new pipe, then maybe a bigger pipe, once you're digging, makes sense, but I think that that's like 3 steps down.
mhm.
Yeah, makes
I
sense to
agree.
me.
Could
do you
be, 3 steps down, but, you know, I'm just suggesting that while they're studying it,
Well, they studied it, they're not engineering doing that.
no, I
That's a
know they're not
different study.
engineering it,
Yeah,
but they might study it and say, this pipe is about to fall apart.
Right.
And that's what they're, all they're basically doing is looking, see if it needs cleaning, see what the longevity of it is, and suggestions of, can it be lined or does it need to be replaced? But they're not going to come at you, with a suggestion of what the replacement would be, just if it needs replacement.
That's the first step.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is the baby steps. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on that?
No.
Okay.
I move we
Then
adjourn.
we have our motion for adjournment by Clerk Brooke, second by Mike
Oh, I
Glassick.
thought we were
All in
gonna
favor?
add wake surfing to the agenda.
I knew nothing about that.
First I've heard of it, so.
I knew nothing about this.
Well, I'd like to bring up a subject anyway.
We adjourned.
So we do it, we have a motion right now on the
It's an
table.
upper lawn right now.
So there's a motion for this like, this is not specific to one lake. This is about the 3 lakes together. So we have a motion on the floor for Clerk Brooke and a second by Mike Vlasic to
Give it here.
adjourn this current, but we could,
But this is a,
but we have to vote. We have a motion and a second. We have to vote on
And
it.
Danny, I would also suggest Upper Long Lake can have to have another
Right.
meeting
Yeah,
anyway.
that could be at that
Let's
upper
add
long,
it to that
yes.
agenda so it's properly noticed.
Right,
Yes.
so we have a
it's a
motion,
Bloomfield Township issue.
but right now at this
Doesn't matter.
meeting, it is not on the agenda.
I
And we have a
understand.
motion and a second.
But
I'd like to call the
discuss
vote.
it.
Not tonight. So we have a call to vote, and it is motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Can I
Okay.
vote
No?
twice?
Okay, so there we, all
Okay,
right.
so at our next